We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Amid growing military tensions, Iran and US to hold a third round of nuclear talks on Thursday in Geneva. Mexico's most wanted drug cartel leader, El Mencho, killed. Violence sweeps the region. India issues advisory for its nationals. US and Canadian airlines cancel flights. Powerful winter storm targets US. State of emergency declared in affected regions. New York City issues travel ban. And in sports, 2026 Winter Olympic cauldron in Milan extinguished as the two-week sporting event comes to end with a spectacular ceremony. And on to the details now. Oman's foreign minister has confirmed that further talks between the United States and Iran will take place in Geneva on Thursday. Badr Ali Busaidi said in a social media post that the talks were set with a positive push to go the extra mile towards finalizing the deal. The announcement comes as the US continues to amass military assets in the Middle East, raising concerns about an all-out war against Iran. The possible timing of an attack is unclear. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is due to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on 28th of February to discuss Iran. A senior US official said it would be mid-March before all US forces were in place. Hours before Oman's announcement, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran was ready to put in place a full monitoring mechanism to guarantee the peaceful nature of its nuclear program and ease tensions. Araghchi, however, said on Sunday that Iran was negotiating only nuclear at the present time. And Mexican drug lord Nemesio Oseguera, commonly known as El Mencho, has been killed in a military raid on Sunday. Mexico's defense ministry said a shootout in the western state of Jalisco left Oseguera seriously injured and he died during an air transfer to Mexico City. Now, the ministry noted that US authorities had provided complimentary information. An ex-police officer, Oseguera, was the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The kingpin killing notches a major victory for Mexico's war on drug cartels that are responsible for smuggling billions of dollars in cocaine and fentanyl into the US. Now, the operation set off a wave of violence with torched cars and gunmen blocking highways in more than half a dozen states. Mexican media outlets reported burning vehicles and gunmen blocking highways in more than half a dozen states across the country, particularly in the north and the west. Jalisco's governor, Pablo Lemus Navarro, urged residents to stay home until the situation was brought under control, and the US Embassy advised its citizens to shelter in place. Well, the military operation against Oseguera follows a pressure campaign from the administration of US President Trump on Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's government to crack down harder on drug trafficking. The US Embassy in Mexico on Sunday urged US citizens to take shelter in several Mexican states and reduce their movements after drug lord El Mencho was killed in a military operation. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said Oseguera's killing was a great development for the U.S. and Mexico as well as the rest of Latin America. Air Canada said on Sunday it temporarily suspended operations in Jalisco's Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific coast. United Airlines and American Airlines said they have cancelled flight operations to Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said activities are normal in most of Mexico after drug lord El Mencho's death in a military operation. She said in a post on X, and I quote, "There's absolute coordination with the governments of all states. We must remain informed and calm." Well, India has joined several countries in issuing advisory for its nationals amid violence in Mexico after the killing of the head of the drug cartel. In a social media post, Embassy of India in Mexico issued an advisory for all internationals saying there are ongoing security operations and related road blockages and criminal activity in the Indian nationals in Jalisco state, areas of Puerto Vallarta, Chapala and Guadalajara. Tamaulipas state, areas of Reynosa and other municipalities, areas of Michoacán state, Guerrero state and Nuevo León state should shelter in place until further notice. It further listed actions to be taken, which includes avoiding areas around law enforcement activity, being aware of the surroundings, seeking shelter and minimizing unnecessary movements outside your shelter. It further asked Indian citizens to monitor local media for updates and avoid crowds and follow the directions of local authorities, and in case of emergency, call 911. It added that family and friends must always be advised of location and well-being via phone, text and social media. For assistance, please contact the Embassy of India at +52 55 48 477 539. And for more on this, we have Meghna Dev joining us. Well, Meghna, with Oseguera killed in a major military operation, as we know, how significant is this moment in Mexico's long-running war against the cartels? And could it realistically weaken the organized crime networks or risk triggering another instability in the state?
Very importantly, Lipakshi, we see that this is a big blow to the organized crime network that has been operating from Mexico. Time and again, the U.S. Department of State, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration has continuously been describing the CJNG as amongst the most powerful and ruthless criminal organizations operating in Mexico. And a big blow with the leader being killed is something that will definitely be a big blow to this organized crime network, organized drug cartel. Obviously, time and again, these people from the cartel, the leader as well as the other people of the cartel have been into confrontations with the security forces, engaged in a lot of confrontations time and again. But this time around, when we see that this crackdown has resulted in when he was being flowed to Mexico City after this confrontation, after this crossfire in Tapalpa, he has died. And Oseguera, for that matter, he had formed this Jalisco New Generation cartel in 2009, which actually grew rapidly into one of Mexico's most powerful and violent criminal organizations. So, and when we actually see that reports tell, U.S. Authorities also tell that this cartel was responsible for trafficking cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl into the United States. So definitely a very big blow. But as of now, when we actually see the situation, obviously the other people from the cartel have resorted to violence, and it's not now only in Tapalpa but also in other states. The governor of Jalisco has also said that people should remain safe. There are many highways and roads that have been closed, so people are being advised not to venture out. Pharmacies, supermarkets, shops all have shut down, because we see a number of visuals that are emerging on social media where places are being set on fire and the authorities are having a hard time to douse the fire. So definitely a very violent situation that is emerging and which is spreading across 4 to 5 states in Mexico.
Right. Also, Meghna, with the U.S. and Indian embassy issuing warning for its citizens in Mexico and few airlines temporarily suspending its operations there, what can we expect?
Currently, when we actually see about more than 30 flights have been cancelled, and more than 60 to 70 flights have been delayed, most of them which are expected to get cancelled as well. Now, very important is the aspect that this is the top tourism time in the Pacific coast. So there are a number of people at the Puerto airport as well who are stranded. There are many people in Mexico City airport also who are stranded because number of flights have ceased operations. So for tourists, it is going to be a very hard time until the situation gets back to normal and the flight operations commences, and flights start getting rescheduled quickly. This is going to be a tough situation. But when we see US, Canada, India for that matter, if we specifically speak about Indians living there, there are about more than 10,000 Indians who live in Mexico. Most of them in Mexico City, IT professionals, pharmacy businesses, garment, textile businesses, people who are living there. But there are very few Indians who are living in and around these cities, which are the affected cities. But still, it's a substantial number, and the Indian Embassy has clearly given out an advisory stating that they should call 911 in case of an emergency. They should keep people updated about their whereabouts from via messages or via social media. Besides that, also they have given out a number so that the Indian nationals can contact the embassy in case of an emergency, clearly asking people not to venture out into affected areas and remain safe. So very important advisory from the Indian embassy, and as well as other countries are also issuing advisories for their nationals to remain safe.
Thank you so much, Meghna, for all those details for us. And moving on, meanwhile, continuing with its operations to seize drugs, the Mexican Navy seized over 1 metric ton of drugs in an operation in the northern state of Baja California Sur. The seizure took place in San Ignacio and included illicit substances such as methamphetamine, fentanyl and cocaine, among others. Weaponry and chemical precursors were also seized. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlights strong bond between India and Israel ahead of his historic visit. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath meets Singapore leadership during his 3-day visit to the nation. An Indian Manipuri film, Boong, makes history as first Indian winner in BAFTA's Best Children's and Family Film category.
Embark on a timeless journey. Unravel the mysteries of a grandiose era. A treasure trove of royal and sacred complexes, temples, shrines, pillared halls, mandapas, rock-cut memorials and more. A spectacular setting of rugged landscape and exemplary workmanship, representing the best of Dravidian architecture. Every structure carved out as a unique artistic creation. A heritage landmark that reflects pure magnificence, integrated within its natural environment. An unexplored haven for nature and adventure enthusiasts. An imposing heritage reflected in its street bazaars and annual festivals of music and culture. Come, Be mesmerized by the glorious capital of the Vijayanagar Empire.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a historic visit to Israel this coming Wednesday. Responding on social media to his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the strong bond between the two countries. He said, and I quote, "I fully agree with you on the bond between India and Israel, as well as the diverse nature of our bilateral relations. India deeply values the enduring friendship with Israel built on trust, innovation, and a shared commitment to peace and progress. Looking forward to our discussions during my upcoming Israel visit," unquote. And early on Sunday, Netanyahu described Prime Minister Modi's visit as historic and called India-Israel ties a powerful alliance between two global leaders. He said that India and Israel are partners in innovation, security, and a shared strategic vision.
On Wednesday, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will arrive. He will address the Knesset, and I am sure you will be there. And we will also hold an innovation event in Jerusalem. Visit Yad Vashem together. I will also note something else, a special collaboration. We will advance cooperation in high-tech AI and quantum. I say AI and quantum because it's not the future, it's the present, and we want to be among the world's leading countries in this field.
Well, Afghanistan has vowed to hit back after Pakistani strikes killed at least 18 people, including women and children. The country called the attacks a blatant violation of its sovereignty. The overnight attacks were the most extensive since border clashes in October last year. A report.
Afghanistan has vowed to retaliate against Pakistani airstrikes on Nangarhar and Paktika provinces at the right time.
The Ministry of National Defense considers the protection of the country's airspace and the security of its people to be its religious and national responsibility, and warns that at an appropriate time it will deliver an appropriate and calculated response.
Women and children were among at least 18 killed in the overnight strikes. Islamabad claimed it hit 7 sites along the border region targeting Afghanistan-based militant groups in response to suicide bombings in Pakistan. However, Afghan authorities and eyewitnesses said that the attacks targeted civilian areas.
This house belonged to a poor farmer named Sahabuddin. Pakistan jet planes came and bombed it, killing all the children and women. We call on the United Nations to bring Pakistan to justice and to ensure that it is brought before a court in accordance with the law.
The overnight attacks were the most extensive since border clashes in October last year, which left more than 70 dead on both sides and wounded hundreds. The strikes also come just days after Afghanistan released 3 Pakistani soldiers in a Saudi Arabia-mediated move to defuse tensions. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, India has strongly condemned Pakistan's airstrikes on Afghanistan, which resulted in civilian casualties during the holy month of Ramadan. In a statement, the Ministry of External Affairs said that the airstrikes are another attempt by Pakistan to externalize its internal failures. India also reiterated its support for Afghanistan's sovereignty. And Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath is on a 3-day visit to Singapore, aimed at drawing sovereign and institutional capital into digital infrastructure, aviation-linked logistics and green industrial corridors. During his visit, Yogi Adityanath had a meeting with Teo Chee Hean, chairman of Temasek, and his team in Singapore. Both discussed opportunities for sovereign investment participation in Uttar Pradesh across data centers, logistic hubs, renewable energy and industrial infrastructure, highlighted the state's policy framework and fast-track clearances for global investors. Well, the minister also met Lim Chief Executive Officer of GIC, commonly referred to Government of Singapore Investment Corporation. They explored avenues for long-term institutional investments in Uttar Pradesh, particularly in infrastructure, logistics, industrial parks and sustainable urban development projects. Now, the Indian minister also appreciated GIC's existing partnerships in Uttar Pradesh, including its association with IRB in the Ganga Expressway project and collaboration with Greenco in the state. Also, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had a productive meeting with Tan Su Shan, Chief Executive Officer of DBS Group, along with a senior leadership team. They discussed strengthening financial cooperation, facilitating project financing and supporting investment flows into infrastructure and growth sectors in Uttar Pradesh. And boosting military capacity with Indian startups at the recently conducted India AI Summit, the Indian Army showcased AI solutions being developed in close collaboration with Indian startups under the vision of self-reliant India. The Indian Army stall attracted dignitaries, industry leaders and technology enthusiasts who witnessed operational AI capabilities being co-created for national security. The key projects that include Ekam AI platform operates on the Army's secure air-gapped network. AI in a box and agentic AI platforms, digitalized brigade with next-level technologies, AI examiner, security control tower. Well, through strong collaboration with India's startup ecosystem, the Indian Army is accelerating indigenous defense innovation and strengthening operational readiness. Well, the 7th edition of the joint military exercise Dharma Guardian 2026 between India and Japan will be conducted at Chaubatia in Uttarakhand from 24th February to the 9th of March. The aim of the exercise is to enhance interoperability between the two forces while undertaking joint urban warfare and counter-terrorism operations. Over the 2 weeks, troops will refine joint planning, synchronize tactical drills and practice specialized combat skills. Key activities include establishing a temporary operating base, developing an ISR grid, mobile checkpost, cordon and search operations, heliborne missions and house intervention drills. Dharma Guardian 2026 reaffirms the growing India-Japan defense partnership and shared commitment to regional security. And in a proud moment for India, Boong, an Indian Manipuri film, has won the BAFTA in the Best Children's and Family Film category. It is the first Indian film to score a nomination in this category, and with this movie, history has been scripted. The film has been produced by Farhan Akhtar and Ritesh Sidhwani's Excel Entertainment, helmed by debutant director Lakshmi Priya Devi. The film is a coming-of-age drama about a young boy named Boong from a valley of Manipur who plans to surprise her mother with a gift. And what would be the perfect gift for her mother than then bringing his father back, refusing to believe that his father Joy Kumar has died after migrating. Well, as the Holi festivities approach, Mathura is gearing up with extensive security measures to ensure peaceful celebrations, especially during the iconic Latmar Holi in Barsana. To prevent any untoward incident or disruption, security personnel will be strategically deployed within the crowd, blending in as regular devotees. Their primary task will be to monitor and identify any rioters or suspicious individuals. Take a look.
The ancient town of Barsana in Mathura is alive with festive energy as it prepares to host its iconic Holi celebrations. Authorities are working round the clock to ensure that every devotee experiences this festival safely and comfortably. Multiple departments have joined hands to oversee security, sanitation, traffic management and medical arrangements across the town.
प्रत्येक जगह को छोटे छोटे सेक्टर में डिवाइड करके साफ सफाई, बिजली के पोल पर करंट ना उतरे, बिजली आपूर्ति हो, पानी की प्रॉपर व्यवस्था रहे, 24/7 सफाई होती रहे, जो भंडारे लगते हैं उनमें प्रॉपर साफ सफाई के साथ साथ जो खाने पीने की गुणवत्ता है वो उचित हो। इसके अलावा जो हमारे अतिथि लोग आते हैं उन्हें किसी प्रकार की असुविधा, चाहे वो ट्रैफिक को लेकर के हो, चाहे आश्रमों में या होटलों में रहने को लेकर के हो।
Routes leading to the Radharani temple have been specially decorated and freshly painted, creating a colourful festive atmosphere. Devotees praise the overall arrangements, highlighting the cleanliness, well-organised facilities and the deeply devotional spirit.
बहुत बढ़िया व्यवस्था है, बहुत अच्छा खाने पीने की बढ़िया व्यवस्था है, अच्छा सब कुछ, गौशाला साफ सफाई सब बढ़िया, बहुत अच्छा है। राधे राधे भैया। पेंटिंग भी बहुत अच्छी है, बढ़िया, ग्वालियर में सब कुछ अच्छा है।
यहाँ पे बहुत अच्छी साफ सफाई है, यहाँ देखकर लग रहा है कि भगवान स्वयं आए यहाँ पे होली खेलने। बहुत अच्छी व्यवस्था है यहाँ पे।
Holi celebrations in Barsana this year will begin on February 24th and conclude on March 5th.
And a sudden spell of heavy snowfall near Sango in Gangtok has severely disrupted traffic on a major mountain highway, leaving hundreds of tourists stranded. Authorities report that a large number of vehicles are stuck along the stretch between Sipsu and the 16th mile, creating challenging conditions for the travellers. Rescue and relief operations are underway with local police and disaster management teams coordinating efforts to assist stranded passengers. Motorists have been advised to exercise caution and authorities are monitoring the situation closely to restore normal traffic flow as soon as possible. And still to come on DD India Newshour. EU says it will accept no increase in US tariffs, citing a deal is a deal. Armed man shot dead by Secret Service after breaching security at Mar-a-Lago amid rising political violence. And North Korea's Kim re-elected to lead a ruling party at Congress.
गर फिरदौस बर्रुए ज़मी अस्त, हमी अस्तो हमी अस्तो हमी अस्त. Jammu and Kashmir, nature's finest works. A land of verdant valleys, pristine lakes, striking autumns, unforgettable majestic beauty. A place of unwavering devotion, wholehearted smiles, and warm hospitality. World famous for its exquisite artistry. Leader in diverse agricultural products. Heartland of winter sports. Jammu and Kashmir is vibrant, diverse, ambitious, future-focused, full of life. Welcome to heaven on earth.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you. with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar.
अरे it fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching T20 India Newshour. Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Amid growing military tensions, Iran and US to hold a third round of nuclear talks on Thursday in Geneva. Mexico's most wanted drug cartel leader El Mencho killed. Violence sweeps region. India issues advisory for its nationals. US and Canadian airlines cancel flights. Powerful winter storm targets the US. State of emergency declared in affected regions. New York City issues travel ban. And in sports, 2026 Winter Olympic cauldron in Milan extinguished as the two-week sporting event comes to end with a spectacular ceremony. And moving on, Greenland said no thanks to US President Donald Trump's plan to send a hospital ship to the Arctic island after he repeatedly threatened to seize the island. Prime Minister John Frederick Nielsen said in a post on Facebook on Sunday that Trump's proposal to send the US medical vessel had been noted. Nielsen said, reiterating Greenland remained open to dialogue and cooperation, but we have a public healthcare system where treatment is free for citizens. It is a deliberate choice. Trump said on Sunday on social media he was working with Louisiana governor and special envoy to Greenland, Jeff Landry, to send the Mercy Hospital boat to Greenland. Greenland, Denmark and the US late last month launched diplomatic talks to resolve the crisis between the parties following months of tension within the NATO defense alliance over Trump's threats against the Arctic territory. And US Secret Service agents fatally shot a man armed with a shotgun who breached the security perimeter of President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida in the early hours of Sunday morning. Trump, who is currently in Washington, was not at the site at the time. The man in Sunday's incident was identified as Austin Tucker Martin from North Carolina. He was reported missing within the last few days. The incident occurred at a time when the United States is facing a spike in political violence. In 2024, a gunman's bullet grazed Trump's ear during a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, and a man later convicted of attempted assassination was spotted hiding in the bushes of a Florida golf course with a semi-automatic rifle while Trump was on the course. In September last year, right-wing influencer and staunch Trump ally Charlie Kirk was shot dead during an event at a university in Utah. Law enforcement officials did not reveal any information about the motive for the incident, and the FBI has taken over the investigation and is collecting evidence from the scene.
The security detail detected that an individual had made his way into the inner perimeter of Mar-a-Lago. A deputy and two Secret Service agents on the detail went to that area to investigate. They confronted a white male that was carrying a gas can and a shotgun. He was ordered to drop those two pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position. At that point in time, the deputy and the two Secret Service agents fired their weapons and neutralized the threat. He is deceased at the scene.
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that developing Russia's nuclear forces was now an absolute priority following the expiry of its last remaining nuclear treaty with the US. His speech came on Russia's Defender of the Fatherland Day, a holiday that is an occasion for military pomp and Kremlin-sponsored patriotism. Putin vowed to keep strengthening the army and navy and draw on military experience from the nearly 4-year conflict in Ukraine. His remarks came just 2 days before the 4th anniversary of its conflict with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Moscow and Washington, the world's two main nuclear powers, are no longer bound by any arms control pact since the new START agreement expired early this month. But Russia said it would continue taking a responsible approach to strategic nuclear capability and respecting the limits set on its arsenal. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the bomb explosions in Lviv a cynical and cruel terrorist act. One police officer was killed and 24 other people were wounded after several explosive devices detonated at midnight in Lviv in western Ukraine. The police said that the first explosion occurred after a patrol crew arrived at the suspected scene of a shop break-in, while the second explosion occurred a little later. Zelensky said that the Ministry of Defense and the military would expand the defense in areas where Russian drone attacks are intensifying, including Sumy and Chernihiv regions.
The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, with our military, must strengthen our defenses against Russian drones in the frontline regions, where there are more and more attacks on civilian vehicles, against rescuers, against our repair crews. The knowledge gained by a frontline region should be effectively spread to the Sumy region and also to the Chernihiv region.
Регіонів має бути цілком ефективно поширений і в Сумській області, а також на Чернігівщині.
Well, Hungary said it will block the European Union's next package of sanctions against Russia, the latest step aimed at pushing Ukraine to resume the flow of Russian oil through a pipeline supplying Hungarian refineries. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán announced 3 countermeasures in response to Ukraine's suspension of crude oil deliveries through the Druzhba pipeline. Orbán stressed that Hungary would maintain its economic and social stability and take further action if necessary. The measures include halting diesel shipments from Hungary to Ukraine, refusing to provide military loans and withholding support for new EU sanctions against Russia, including the bloc's 20th sanction package. Shipments of Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia via the Druzhba pipeline have been cut off since January 27th, when Kyiv said a Russian drone strike hit pipeline equipment in western Ukraine. Slovakia and Hungary say Ukraine is to blame for the prolonged outage. And the European Commission demanded on Sunday that the United States stick to the terms of an EU-US trade deal reached last year after the US Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's global tariffs and he responded with new levies across the board. The Commission, which negotiates trade policy on behalf of the 27 EU member states, said Washington must provide full clarity on the steps it intends to take following the court ruling. In the joint statement setting out the terms of last year's trade agreement, the Commission said a deal is a deal. EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic had discussed the issue with US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on Saturday. After the court struck down Trump's global tariffs on Friday, the US president announced temporary across-the-board tariffs of 10%, which he then hiked to 15% a day later. And Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker wrote a letter to U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday demanding him refund the state $8.68 billion after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the president's sweeping tariffs illegal. In the letter, Pritzker said on behalf of the residents of Illinois, he demanded a refund of $1,700 for every family in the state. There are over 51 lakh households in Illinois. Pritzker posted the related bill on social media and said, "Cut the check." In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court of the United States said that the tariff policies under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act are unconstitutional, officially striking down the global tariffs Trump has introduced since April 2025. The justices ruled that the president did not have the authority under IEEPA to impose import tariffs on goods from nearly all the U.S. trading partners. And U.S. President Donald Trump on Saturday raised worldwide import tariffs from 10% to 15% effective immediately, a day after the Supreme Court struck down portions of his sweeping trade measures. He criticized the decision as extraordinarily anti-American. In a social media post, Trump signaled that he would press ahead with his trade agenda despite the legal setback. While Trump vowed to continue adjusting tariffs, several countries now weigh options to respond to the new U.S. tariffs.
In less than 24 hours after President Donald Trump signed an order establishing a new 10% global tariff to 15%, appending one of his signature trade deals in the process. The abrupt changes followed the Supreme Court's ruling on Friday that struck down his tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Hours after the decision, he imposed a 10% rate under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, then hiked the new duty on Saturday morning. In a post on social media, he said that after a thorough review of Friday's extraordinarily anti-American decision by the court to rein in his tariff program, the administration was hiking the import levies to the fully allowed and legally tested 15% level. Trump also said that during the next short number of months, the administration will determine and issue the new and legally permissible tariffs, which will continue extraordinarily successful process of making America great again. By a 6-3 vote, the court had ruled that it was unconstitutional for Trump to unilaterally set and change tariffs because the power to tax lies with the US Congress. Trump lashed out at the Supreme Court, calling the ruling deeply disappointing and adding that he was ashamed of the justices who ruled against his tariffs, which included his own appointees. After US SC decision, businesses and governments around the world sought repayment for the estimated $133 billion that Washington has already collected. According to a White House fact sheet, exemptions remain for sectors that are under separate probes, including pharma and goods entering the US under the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. Trump's tariffs are a key plank of his economic policy, which he has said will encourage businesses to invest and produce goods in the US rather than overseas. But the court's decision marked a significant check on his power and a major blow to his second-term agenda. Meanwhile, the governments of multiple countries have said they are mulling plans in response to possible new US tariff hike. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that he will travel to Washington, D.C. over a week later to hold talks with Trump on the issue. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva urged Donald Trump to treat all countries equally. In Seoul, the Presidential Office of the Republic of Korea also convened a meeting on Saturday and discussed response plans. Australia's government said it will examine all options. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, more than 200 Venezuelan political prisoners were on hunger strike to demand their release under a new amnesty law that excludes many of them. The hunger strike began on Friday night at the Rodeo, a prison on the outskirts of Caracas. Inmates complained they would not benefit from the law because it excludes cases involving the military, which are the most common ones at that facility. The amnesty law was engineered by interim leader Delcy Rodriguez under pressure from Washington. Opposition figures have criticized the new legislation, which appears to include carve-outs for some offences previously used by authorities to target Maduro's political opponents. Well, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been re-elected as the General Secretary of the ruling Workers' Party at a rare Congress. The state news agency reported that the decision was made on day 4 of the Congress in accordance with the unshakable will and unanimous desire of all the delegates. Held just once every 5 years, the gathering directs state efforts on everything from house building to war planning. It is thus the 9th time the Workers' Party Congress has convened under the Kim family's decades-long rule. The meeting meeting was shelled under Kim's father, Kim Jong-un, too, but was revived in 2016. In his speech to open the Congress on Thursday, Kim vowed to lift living standards, offering a glimpse of the economic strains affecting his sanctions-hit nation. And the International Criminal Court will begin a hearing on Monday to decide whether former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte should stand trial for crimes against humanity linked to his deadly anti-drug crackdown. The confirmation of charges hearing taking place over 4 days will determine whether there is enough evidence against Duterte to proceed to a trial. The 80-year-old will not be present at the hearing in The Hague after the court granted a defense request to waive his right to appear, despite judges ruling that he was fit to take part. Following the hearing, the judges will have 60 days to issue a written decision. And some weather-related updates from across the globe. First up from New York, where blizzard warnings were issued for New York City and parts of New Jersey and Connecticut as the major storm was forecast to hit a large swathe of the East Coast. The city stopped most transportation services, allowing only emergency travel as a major winter storm approached the Northeast, and officials warned that power cuts were possible. Streets, highways and bridges will remain closed until noon on Monday under a state of emergency, with residents urged to avoid non-essential travel. States of emergency and travel restrictions were also declared in Connecticut, Delaware, New Jersey and Rhode Island, alongside similar measures in New York and Massachusetts. While snow began falling over Times Square on Sunday, but crowds continue to move through the bustling streets ahead of the impending major winter storm. The National Weather Service warned that blizzard conditions would rapidly develop from Maryland through southeastern New England, with heavy snow and strong winds forecast from Sunday into Monday across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And in Poland, ice flowed down the Vistula River on Sunday as the weather finally warmed after almost 2 months of unusually extreme winter weather. Just before the new year, Poland experienced unusually cold weather, resulting in heavy snowfall and the freezing of rivers, lakes and sections of the Baltic Sea. However, forecasts now indicate a shift to warmer conditions, with temperatures projected to exceed the typical levels for this time of the year. The State Institute of Meteorology and Water Management of Poland has cautioned that the rapid melting of snow and ice could lead to sudden increases in water levels within the Vistula River basin. Time now for a short break. We'll be back in a while. Welcome back. You're watching TD India Newshour, and on to some business news. Share markets were hesitant and the dollar slid in Asia on Monday as investors waited for some much-needed clarity on U.S. tariffs, while confidence in the entire AI trade was set to be tested by results from tech diva Nvidia this week. Oil prices eased ahead of another round of talks between the United States and Iran due in Geneva on Thursday, with the risk of U.S. military strikes lingering if a deal is not done. S&P 500 futures fell 0.3% and Nasdaq futures 0.4% ahead of earnings from Nvidia, which is sure to cause waves given the tech behemoth makes up almost 8% of the S&P 500 index. Well, the gold prices climbed to a more than 3-week high on Monday as uncertainty stoked by the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to strike down a vast swathe of President Donald Trump's tariffs pressured the dollar and pushed investors to the safety of bullion. Spot gold climbed 1.1% per ounce, earlier hitting its highest since 30th of January. You're watching DT India News. Our time now for some sports news. Italy bade farewell to the Winter Olympics with a grand closing ceremony in Verona city that celebrated art and sporting achievements. The ceremony was entitled Beauty in Action and also featured leading Italian ballet dancer Roberto Bolle at the ancient Verona Arena. The games, formerly co-hosted by Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo, have been spread across a large area of northern Italy. The baton now passes to the French Alps, which are expected to follow a similar blueprint in 2030. Norway finished atop the medals table with 18 gold and 41 medals overall. The USA was second with 12 gold and the Netherlands third with 10, while host nation Italy was placed at the fourth. Norwegian cross-country skier Johannes Klæbo made history by winning all 6 races in which he participated. Well, West Indies will be wary of Zimbabwe's T-lead resolve when the two unbeaten teams face off in a vital T20 World Cup Super 8 clash in Mumbai today. Both topped their respective groups in the first round, but the job is far from finished for them as stern challenges lie ahead. For the two-time champions, the West Indies, it will be another test of their approach in a format they truly thrive in. With 4 wins on the trot, the West Indies have ensured their series defeat in 7 bilateral affairs in the lead-up to the tournament as a matter of past. On the other hand, Zimbabwe had an inspirational run so far, one in which they have trounced former world champions Australia and Sri Lanka. Zimbabwe's self-belief and confidence matches their all-round strength as they now find themselves in the big boys club, where stakes are much higher with semi-final spots on offer. And South Africa ended India's 12-match winning streak at the T20 World Cup with a crushing 76-run win in Ahmedabad in their opening Super 8 match. After a counter-attacking 63 runs by player of the match, David Miller, and some late hitting from Tristan Stubbs took South Africa to 187 runs for the loss of 7 wickets. The defending champions were all out for 111 runs in 18.5 overs, failing badly in the first stage of the tournament. Left-arm quick Marco Jensen finished with 4 wickets, while left-arm spinner Keshav Maharaj took 3 scalps as the South African bowlers exposed India's batting lineup. The defeat meant India will take a poor net run rate forward, and that could prove vital if the Super 8 group is tight. India will need to win their 2 remaining games against Zimbabwe and the West Indies to have a chances of qualifying for the semi-finals. DT India correspondent Abhishek Mahajan analyses the reasons for India's comprehensive defeat in the high-voltage contest.
India stumbled in Super 8 clash as South Africa outclassed them in a crucial encounter. Faulty start, no meaningful partnerships, and innings never found momentum. India need to regroup themselves ahead of the big clash against Zimbabwe. With cameraman Satyaprakash Dubey, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Ahmedabad for DD India.
Well, Arsenal sunk Tottenham Hotspur again with a 4-1 win following Eberechi Eze's double as the table toppers restored a 5-point lead on the Premier League standings. Eze scored his first goal since netting a hat-trick in the first North London derby of the season in November. The pressure was on Arsenal to respond after back-to-back draws at Brentford and Wolves that had allowed Manchester City to close in at the top. Mikel Arteta's men rose to the challenge to inflict pain on their local rivals, while Liverpool needed Alexis McAllister's 97th minute goal to beat Nottingham Forest 1-0. Liverpool were poor throughout and toothless going forward, and the home side were not much better in their first league game under new boss Vitor Pereira. Liverpool remained in the 6th spot but climbed level on points with Chelsea and Manchester United. Well, Barcelona cruised to a 3-0 victory over Levante to reclaim pole position in La Liga after Real Madrid fell to a 2-1 defeat at Osasuna on Saturday. Hansi Flick's side moved a point clear of their bitter rivals with a comfortable victory at Camp Nou. Marc Bernal and Frankie de Jong gave Barcelona a commanding first-half lead, and Fermin Lopez wrapped up the win with a sensational drive late in the match. Barcelona were back to winning ways after a 4-0 thrashing by Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey semi-final first leg last week, and then a 2-1 defeat by Girona on Monday in La Liga. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.